Hi guys, we're Anthony and Jesse with LoveCry. We've got the CEO of LoveCry right here. And today's topic I think is one that's very important because it links to so many things having to do with mental health, emotional health, and our growth, and its needs, desires, wants, and how that relates to self-love. And I think there's a lot of videos posted about manifesting, manifesting your dreams and only have people around you that support your dreams and get what you want out of life. And so Jesse you're telling me some things that I don't normally think about in that discussion about wants and needs, because really it's all about like, make a goal and then go for it and get these things that you want. I don't know, like houses, cars, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. And you were saying like that it was linking to things, right? Like self-love. Like if I love myself, I want to give myself these things because I love myself. So I want that chocolate cake. I want to sit on the couch all day. These are all things. These are all desires that we have. We have many desires, and a lot of our desires kind of fight with each other, right? Because if you want to have a six-pack, but you also want to eat pizza and cake, then those desires are fighting with each other, right? Because the pizza and the cake they're going to work against your six-pack desire, and the six-pack desire is going to work against the pizza and the cake. So, but maybe that's another discussion. But how does this link with self? Because you were saying some things about self-love, like self-love and also managing yourself. Kind of, I'm almost hearing you, in a sense, saying like adulting yourself. Like we have different aspects of ourselves, so we need the adult to kind of do stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like parenting yourself.
Yeah, parenting yourself, which is an ongoing thing, right? Because we're always learning and growing until we croak. So just because you turned 18 doesn't mean that now you're an adult and you don't have to grow anymore.
Yeah, you don't have to love yourself anymore. Exactly, you're just born loving.
Yeah, and self-love is a really big deal, right? And I also seen so many memes of like if someone doesn't support you, walk away, or if your relationship, if your significant other, if your partner is not doing this A, B, and C, then kick them out and get a better partner, because this is what you deserve. And so, but a lot of that stems with our relationship with ourselves. I mean, that's home base, that's ground zero, that's the foundation that we're building the building on. So if the building is built on a bad foundation, the building's going to go, so it doesn't matter how nice this building is, it needs that foundation in order to be able to stand.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's where I think self-love comes in, because there's a lot of times when you feel you want something. Say for example, you're have been abused or broken your entire life. You're trying to find a way to move forward, but you just seem to be stuck in the same patterns. Like you always end up with the same outcome. That's where you have to start to challenge your thoughts, challenge who you are and yourself, because those things that you believe are yourself are just basic conditioning, basic things that people have made you influence you to think this is who you are. And then so unless you challenge that, instead of giving you into all these desires and wants, you might not ever find yourself again. So it's very important in order to move forward, is to really look at yourself, to really look at those feelings that you're trying to cover. Are those things, those ways you're trying to heal those, are those beneficial? Are they really helpful to you? Or are they just what you want? Just something that suffices you, something that appeases you?
Well, you talked about looking deeper and challenging, and I think those are two massive topics, right? So challenging yourself, like I read something by a therapist who really reminds me of you, so I want to show you this therapist, but he was saying like, I just told myself, I'm not one of those people that is going to be a happy person. Like, and this was a very deep belief, but it took him a long time to challenge that belief. Like, is that so? And can you, so you're actually arguing with yourself in a way, like, okay, this is a belief, but can you prove that to me? Like, can you make a logical argument of that?
Yeah.
So, you talked about kind of what I'm hearing from you is some wants and desires and needs can be stuff that we plaster over these limiting beliefs or limiting self-concepts that we don't want to look at.
Yeah.
So we don't want to look at like, I'm just not one of those people that is going to be happy like other people, so let me get this awesome muscle car because maybe that'll make me feel better, but it's not challenging that core something which needs to heal. So
and then once you get that also, then you'll need something else.
Right.
So you'll attain that, and then you'll be back to that same feeling of not worth it. Because you already attained it, so now you have to find something else.
The
to
next thing, the next diversion or the next distraction. And so we can get these things, but let's not lose sight of the core, that foundation I was talking about. So when you say challenge, it's like you're actually arguing with yourself in a way, like, where is this coming from? Let me look behind this.
It's trying to understand yourself more than argue, because arguing with yourself, then it's like an inner fight, but rather communicate with yourself to come to an understanding, to see if this is what you really believe. Because if you're just like, no, you're wrong, you need to think like this, you need to do this, then it's going to be convoluted again and switch into another subject. It's
another distraction, another diversion.
Because it's not allowed to have this as a distraction.
So that reminds me of someone called Nathaniel Branden. I love this guy. He's a therapist. I read one of his books. So he talks about like looking into yourself without judgment. So like, let me explore myself. So I have this part of me that doesn't feel worthy of love, doesn't feel worthy of having nice things, doesn't feel worthy of being like everyone else. I'm below everybody else. But it's really important to look at that, because what some people do that feel below everyone else is they'll start to pretend, even to themselves, that they're better than everybody else. But what's fueling that is they feel worse than everyone else. So if they would just go in there, really honestly examine that with love and with acceptance, then they can get rid of that fuel that's fueling them to like try to be better than everybody else, right? Just as an example.
Yeah, because it leads to feelings of jealousy. Because that's a perfect example there, to where like you automatically start to want what they have, or you think you're less because you don't have that. So then it becomes jealous feelings, and then that becomes hateful feelings, and then we don't like those feelings, so we try to hide those feelings, and then we keep burying and burying and burying, and then we don't really know who we are or what's wrong. We're just saying what we need to say to get by, and then we go home, and then we're just stuck with who we are in our thoughts, and who knows what happens from there. Like it could lead to, sorry.
Oh, no, that's great. No, I wasn't. I'm just really listening, and some wheels are turning in my head as you're speaking, because you're saying like, the next thing, and so like all these diversions. So wants and needs and desires can be really congruent or true, but they can also be diversionary. And then, like you say, we're always going to need the next one, because we're not doing some work. We're not doing some self-acceptance. Like real self-love is to say, you know what, I'm going to go into that mud, and no matter what I find, I'm still going to accept myself. No matter what I find in that mud, like I feel like I'm not good enough, I suck, whatever. And we all have these things, but it's good to explore them, because we all have a different version and a different little voice. Get to know these things and see if you can shed light on them, and you can adult these things and bring them forward. Right?
It's like the yin yang. Everyone's trying to get away from the negative. They just want the positive. And it's like, well, how do you feel balanced? Like, how do you feel inside yourself when you just want positivity? You're going to feel upset because you have to hurt people. In order to feel positive all the time, you have to put others down. Like this world is suffering. Like for us to feel good, we have to feel better than others. And, it's not to say you have to feel like, whoa, like be depressed all the time or down. It's just you have to be able to accept what is and stop trying to hide that in order to have better, to move things forward. We always want to move things forward without ever dealing with what's there. Oh, I don't like that, so let's look over there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, okay, but what about those people? What happens to them when we look the other way?
And what happens to that aspect of ourself? Because that's... We're not getting, love is unconditional. So when you accept negative traits in yourself and low traits in yourself and not nice traits and thoughts in yourself, when you accept those, you're giving yourself unconditional love, saying, I have faith in myself. So I have these things that might be negative, but I'm going to own them. I'm going to explore them. I'm going to admit them. And just a wonderful example came up for me with what you're saying about like diversion and getting the next thing and being better than everyone. So there was this influencer, and I honestly forget her name, but I saw a video about her. So she was gorgeous, beautiful. She was young, and she was making a lot of money, earning a lot of money from being an influencer. Like when you have so many followers, you get a lot of action. Like, hey, talk about my product. I'll give you free product. I'll give you money. Like, so she's making a lot of money. and taking videos of herself like all over the world in these beautiful hotels and beautiful destinations. That girl killed herself. She killed herself. Now, she's an extreme example, but all of us that are posting all these nicey things, and look how great my life is, and look at this beautiful picture of my dinner, and look at this beautiful picture of where I am, like we're doing that inside ourselves. Like we only want to see the good parts of ourselves, and we don't want to own the negative parts of ourselves. And as we said in other videos, if we don't look at and accept and integrate all the parts of ourselves, they're just going to knock louder and louder and louder, and they're going to bring us down harder and harder and harder until, you can get an extreme case where the person ends their life, or they abuse alcohol, or they abuse drugs, or they abuse sex, or they abuse something. Like they get addicted to something, and a very common addiction is like, I need to get more likes, I need to get more followers, because it gives us a little hit, and we're trying to cover up that small part of ourself, or that low part of ourself that we haven't integrated and loved and brought home, and it's going back to that adulting yourself and loving yourself by going into these parts of ourselves, and being okay with them.
Yeah, it's like raising yourself in a sense, like. But it is also difficult if you don't know yourself, and getting to know yourself can be a process as well. But it's important in order to stop hurting our families, to move forward, stop hurting community in the world. Just because we ignore it, just because we tune it out or pretend it's not there or not happening, it doesn't mean that we're not part of that problem. And if we don't want to access or acknowledge these things, then we are part of the abuse. We are part of the suffering. So if we want to have our happy-go-lucky little view on, that's still causing harm. Just because you want to stay back, you give your money or you donate, you think that that's changing things, but yet who's taught you that? It's kind of sequential in like a hierarchy of power, to where it's like a band-aid fix. Here's food. Here's this, like go fight for your food. Go wait in line when it should be provided to you. I'm off topic.
No, I think it's actually on topic, because what you're talking about is not just wants and desires, but you're talking about these positive actions where we convince ourselves we're being a good person, and you're saying not only it's external too. So I talked about the internal, where these unresolved and unaccepted negative aspects of ourselves bring us down, and you're saying these negative unresolved things within ourselves, they vibrate out into the world, and they hurt the people around you, right? So if you've ever sometimes like noticed, if you're feeling down around someone, but they're being nice, but you feel down around them, like, so you're reacting to that shit that they haven't shit into the toilet, because and it's not like you're going to put it into the toilet, but you're going to take that mucky stuff inside you and heal it and raise the vibration of it and accept it and integrate.
And the more you trust that person, the more you take on their problems. So if they're lying to you and you're taking it in and believing it, then you're actually causing yourself harm, because now you have to deal with those feelings they're not dealing with, and they're not yours, so they're really hard to pinpoint.
Wow.
They're really hard to figure out.
So this negative stuff within us, which isn't healed, can become almost parasitic, where it will infect someone, right? So when Jesse talks about like, the negative stuff inside us impacts the entire world, it's not that you're doing anything bad on the surface, but this negative unresolved stuff can like resonate with someone else, and it can tune into them. And so this is how we need to be careful. Like we need to be in the world, because we're social. Like a human being is a social being. We need to be in the world, and so this is important not just for our own mental health. And I mean, it's more motivating to say, well, if I do this stuff, I'm going to feel happier, because it's not going to be dragging me down. So that's easier to motivate. But it's also nice to know that when you integrate and clean up and adult and grow parts of yourself that have been left behind, you're also going to be a safer person within your social circles.
You'll have that happiness forever, no matter what happens to you. It's like this thing where this Buddhist psychology thing where they were like in prison. He's like, will you ever forgive your captors? He's like, no, never. And then they're
Well, so
like,
one prisoner was talking to another
yeah,
prisoner.
yeah, sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
So the one prisoner is like, would you ever forgive these dudes that stuck us in prison?
Yeah, and he's like, no, never. And then he's like, well, then they have you captured. They still have you in capture.
Oh, okay, so these guys were now out of the prison.
Yes.
Okay, so they're
Yes,
out of
yes,
prison, like.
yeah.
So
Sorry.
that's wonderful, because I think I've heard that one as well. So these guys are out of prison, but the one guy's like, well, you're still in prison because you haven't forgiven,
Yeah.
right? So we also have to do that internally, forgive ourselves. Like often we're mad at someone about something, but it ties in with something we're mad about. We're mad at ourselves for.
It's always projected that way. It's always inner anger before it's someone else. So if you could take that in and look at yourself, it will calm your anger. It helped me deal with my past partner where my child was abused and hurt all the time. That anger was only hurt in my child. And so I learned to love that partner again, not for romantic reasons, not to be part of her life, but so that my daughter doesn't feel that hate towards her.
Because even though you loved your daughter, if you had this hatred inside yourself, this unresolved issue, that would impact your daughter when you're around her.
No matter how much I say I love her, if you love someone, you have to endure the negative with the positive. You can't just love something and then not have a negative aspect that comes with it. You have to work with both. And when you could work with both, you make a complete human. And then it also nullifies the abuse, the effects that you're going to have against others negatively. You may
like
obviously
you end the cycle in a way.
Yeah. Like we all make mistakes. You may cause problems. You may have an accident, but you'll be aware. You'll be able to fix it in the moment instead of bury it, instead of hide from it and feel shame and guilty. You'll be able to own it and respect it and love it, and then that way it will alleviate itself and strengthen your relationship with the person that you've had that with as well.
It reminds me of something that happened in my life. So I had someone that I was incredibly mad at. Like, mad is not the word. I was enraged. Okay, enraged. Like lustful anger. Like just thirsting for blood. Okay, I was so mad, and I prayed. I didn't I don't do that like hands together and I'm kneeling in church pray, but I just like reached upward and I was like, I need help. I need help to forgive this person. I want to forgive this person. And that desire that with me reaching out, like within a short time, I had like a gestalt moment. Like I had a flash of something I had done in my past, which had nothing to do with this person, and I was so ashamed of it, and I was so judging of myself about it, but I had repressed it. I never thought about it. Like I just, those things that you like, oh, I forgot all about it. No, you don't forget about anything. You don't forget about anything. Okay, so this stuff was repressed. So I had asked the higher power to help me forgive this person, and what came up was like, boom, I'm really ashamed of something I did in the past. So then, and I'm explaining something that came to me in a flash, so I'm breaking it down, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to forgive myself for what I did, which I don't really even think I deserve to forgive myself, but if I forgive that person, then I can feel like maybe I deserve to forgive myself. And then, boom, man, I felt so light. I felt like someone literally took 50 pounds off my shoulders. I'm walking around and I'm hardly feeling the ground under me because I'm so light. So this is the healing we're talking about. So examine yourself, and you don't forget anything, and have that intention. I want to examine myself. I want to heal negative things within myself so I can be more happy because I'm not walking around with 50 pounds on my shoulders, right? That would make anybody more happy if you take a big weight off your shoulders.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's awesome that kind of came up, because does that kind of relate to what you were saying? Like, you wanted to forgive, your ex.
Yeah,
and yours was more pure because you didn't even have to make a deal with yourself like to forgive something of yours, but you wanted to heal this negative thing inside yourself, for the sake of your girl.
Yeah, because I was taught from my mentor Angel that hate, that anger, the upset, the resentment, the jealousy, like, how is it benefiting you? In what way do you feel better from that? And you're just like, well, I'm angry. That's why I feel better. And like you're just like, you don't have an answer. I don't know if anyone else does, but I was baffled. I was just like, well, because I'm angry, like, you can't do this to me, and it's this, and there's no real reason, like
there's no real benefit to you.
Yeah.
So Angel that you're referring to is Angel Femia, who started LoveCry, and she was the one who pulled an intervention on you. And then now that Angel has passed, she's left the reins in your hands to carry LoveCry forward. And you're doing some amazing work on yourself, and you're doing some amazing schooling to be able to carry that work forward. So thanks for an awesome interview.
Thank you. Thanks again.
I'm very happy to be part of LoveCry, and I'm happy if you guys are watching this video and get something positive out of it.
Thanks.